In today's episode, we'll explore key indicators that could signal the looming threat of a nuclear conflict. With ongoing global tensions and political uncertainty, it's important to stay informed about the factors that might escalate into a crisis of unprecedented scale. From dramatic shifts in international relations to advancements in nuclear weapons technology, understanding these warning signs can help us better prepare for potential scenarios. This isn't about fear-mongering, but about education and awareness in an increasingly volatile world. We'll break down these warning signs in an easy-to-understand way, linking them to real-world events and expert analysis. Stay with us as we shine a light on these critical issues and consider what they mean for global security and our collective future. Now, let's get started. 1. DEFCON drops. When it comes to nuclear war warnings, a drop in DEFCON level is one of the most chilling. The DEFCON Defense Readiness System has 5 levels, ranging from DEFCON 5 to DEFCON 1. DEFCON 5 is business as usual, normal military readiness. DEFCON 1, on the other hand, is an all-out nightmare, signaling imminent nuclear war. If the level drops to DEFCON 2 or worse, it means the situation is spiraling quickly. Here's the real kicker, though. You're probably not going to hear about it on the evening news. The US government doesn't exactly make public announcements every time the DEFCON level changes. These shifts are made behind the scenes, with little fanfare, leaving the average person in the dark. But just because no one's talking about it, doesn't mean you can't spot the signs if you know what to look for. A drop in DEFCON level often comes with noticeable patterns if you're paying attention. For starters, you might observe increased military activity, particularly around strategic locations like air bases, missile silos, or naval facilities. Scrambled jets, heightened troop deployments, or sudden, unusual movements of military equipment should raise red flags. Then, there's the behavior of government officials. When high-ranking leaders suddenly vanish for unscheduled trips or their movements seem rushed and unexplained, it's a pretty good clue that something big is happening behind closed doors. These maneuvers rarely mean a weekend retreat. The key takeaway? A drop in the DEFCON level is a silent alarm, not a screaming siren. It signals that the world is sliding closer to the brink of nuclear conflict. By the time you actually hear about it on official channels, if at all, it might already be too late to prepare. Recognizing the subtle shifts, like changes in military posture and strange government behavior, could be the difference between being caught off guard and staying one step ahead. When DEFCON levels drop, tension doesn't just rise, it skyrockets. Ignore it at your own risk. 2. Elites disappearing to private shelters. One of the starkest indicators that a nuclear conflict may be imminent is the sudden and unexplained disappearance of elite individuals to private, well-stocked shelters in remote locations. These are the billionaires, political power players, and influential figures who often have advanced knowledge of global developments that the average person does not. Their ability to access classified intelligence, combined with vast resources, makes their actions worth paying attention to. When they quietly vanish, it's a red flag no one should ignore. These individuals are not just taking extended vacations. They are relocating to specifically chosen safe zones designed to withstand geopolitical disasters, including nuclear war. Popular destinations for these bug-out retreats include remote areas like New Zealand, a country prized for its isolation, neutrality, and low likelihood of being targeted in conflicts. Similarly, Costa Rica appeals to the elite due to its geopolitical stability and neutrality. These sanctuaries are often equipped with state-of-the-art bunkers capable of sustaining life for years, stocked with food, medical supplies, and advanced filtration systems to handle fallout scenarios. The mere fact that these shelters exist should set off alarm bells. Billionaires and world leaders don't pour fortunes into massive, fortified compounds, nor do they relocate their families to these remote areas on a whim. When elites begin disappearing from the public eye or cancel long-standing appearances with little explanation, it's often a precursor to a significant crisis. This behavior may appear subtle at first, but when analyzed alongside other warning signs, it becomes glaringly obvious that something catastrophic is on the horizon. The actions of the elite matter because of their predictive nature. They have a clear advantage in accessing detailed, up-to-date information that the general population is often kept in the dark about. Their moves aren't speculative, they result from real-time intelligence assessments of risk. If the rich and powerful are quietly moving to remote safe zones and hunkering in bunkers, it's because they know something we don't, and the window to prepare may already be closing. The lesson here is simple. When the elites vanish, you're likely closer to disaster than you think. 3. Escalation of cyber warfare. One of the clearest indicators of an impending nuclear conflict is the surge in cyber warfare targeting critical global infrastructure. State-sponsored cyber attacks serve as silent but effective tools of modern warfare, destabilizing nations without firing a single bullet. Before missiles are launched, adversaries often cripple their opponents by hacking power grids, financial systems, communication networks, and essential government operations. These sophisticated attacks create chaos, weaken morale, and undermine a nation's ability to respond swiftly to physical threats. Power outages on a massive scale are one telltale sign. Cyber attacks targeting energy grids can plunge entire regions into darkness, paralyzing industries, hospitals, and emergency services. Such blackouts leave populations vulnerable, unable to communicate or access resources. Beyond mere inconvenience, they are a calculated tactic meant to sow confusion and render nations defenseless in the lead-up to more severe actions. Along with blackouts, disruptions to global positioning systems, GPS, are another ominous warning. GPS is critical for navigation, aviation, and even missile guidance. Tampering with these systems could ground flights, halt logistics, or interfere with military operations. Enemies use these disruptions as practice runs or to confuse and delay immediate threats before deploying nuclear weapons. Perhaps the most alarming sign is widespread internet outages that cripple communications and economic activity. Hacked internet networks can crash financial markets, silence critical broadcasts, and disrupt emergency alerts. When the internet goes down on a large scale, it's often more than a technical glitch. It's a calculated move to isolate populations and governments. This digital assault leaves nations blind and powerless while aggressors prepare their next move. It's important to understand that cyber warfare doesn't happen in isolation. It's frequently a precursor to physical conflict. Governments often use cyber attacks to test their adversaries' vulnerabilities or measure their response capabilities. If major cyber attacks coincide with rising geopolitical tension, it's time to assume the worst and prepare for the possibility of full-scale war. The harsh reality is that if you begin noticing cyber warfare on this scale, it's not just random, but a warning sign that more devastating actions such as nuclear strikes are within view. Cyber warfare sets the stage for chaos, confusion, and ultimately destruction. Recognize it for what it is, a loud warning to act while time remains. 4. Intense military air activity. One of the clearest warning signs of an imminent nuclear conflict is a noticeable surge in military air movements. Fighter jets, bombers, and helicopters become a constant presence over key airspaces, signaling that military forces are gearing up for potential large-scale action. These aircraft aren't in the skies for routine training or drills. They represent real, tangible preparations for conflict on a catastrophic level. Jet fighters are often deployed in rapid bursts, patrolling areas that have grown tense or hostile. Their job is to intercept and neutralize threats at a moment's notice. If you notice squadrons of fighters lingering in the skies or consistently being scrambled, it's a signal that regional or global tensions are close to boiling over. Bombers, which are slower but far more devastating, typically indicate that offensive plans are being finalized. These planes carry payloads that could reshape entire landscapes, and their preemptive deployment is a grave warning of potential strikes on strategic targets. Perhaps most unsettling is the significant increase in helicopter movements. Helicopters transport command personnel, key resources, or even field units in preparation for critical operations. The rapid relocation of leaders or supplies signals that strategies are being organized to brace for worst-case scenarios. Every takeoff and landing reflects calculated moves as militaries pivot toward action. What makes this activity so alarming is the sheer coordination required. Pilots are deployed around the clock, airspaces become militarized zones, and the rhythm of takeoffs and landings creates a constant hum of urgency. For observers on the ground, this paints an unambiguous picture. This isn't peacetime posturing. It's confirmation that militaries are positioning themselves to act decisively, with nuclear strategies potentially on the table. Understanding these patterns makes it all too clear that airspace becomes a checkerboard of war. Military air activity is not random. It is a deliberate signal to those watching that escalation is no longer a possibility. It's a reality. By the time jets are screaming overhead and bombers loom in formation, the countdown has already begun. Ignoring such signs would be gambling with survival. When the skies turn hostile, it's time to assume the worst and prepare accordingly. 5. Disruption of diplomatic relations. A clear sign that nuclear war is dangerously close is the sudden or accelerated breakdown of diplomatic relations between major world powers. When nations withdraw ambassadors, sever treaties, or publicly end communication channels, it signals that conflict is escalating to a point where peaceful resolution is no longer a priority. This is often accompanied by aggressive rhetoric, threats, or even ultimatums issued through press releases or state broadcasts. The collapse of diplomacy serves as a warning sign that negotiations and dialogue, which typically act as a buffer to war, have been abandoned. Without these stabilizing efforts, misunderstandings between nations are left to fester, and military posturing takes center stage. Watch for expulsion of diplomats, closed embassies, or statements from world leaders promising decisive action against adversaries. These are not routine occurrences, and often hint at a spiraling situation. History has shown that once diplomacy fails, the countdown to direct confrontation accelerates rapidly. Disruption of diplomatic relations often goes hand in hand with massive military buildups and alliance strengthening. It is not uncommon for countries to bolster their defenses or rally allies during this stage, further fueling the perception of imminent conflict. If world powers are openly accusing one another of dishonesty, law violations, or provocations, while simultaneously avoiding high-level talks, the possibility of a nuclear exchange becomes staggeringly real. For an individual, this serves as a signal to prepare, whether it is by paying closer attention to news, securing supplies, or identifying safe shelters. The crumbling of diplomatic ties is often one of the final steps before all-out disaster. The public must be vigilant, as governments may minimize the severity of the situation to delay panic until it's too late. Key takeaway: when dialogue is replaced by threats and nations start cutting ties with each other, nuclear war is not just a possibility, it's a likely next step. Recognizing this cold escalation can give you the edge to act before it's too late. Conclusion: understanding the warning signs of an impending nuclear conflict is crucial for staying prepared and informed. By recognizing the patterns of escalating tensions, military buildups, and dwindling diplomacy, individuals can take proactive steps to protect themselves and their loved ones. Awareness and preparation are vital in these uncertain times, as staying vigilant could mean the difference between safety and catastrophe.